With the MCU going into a soft reboot post-Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, it's no secret that the X-Men will be a major focus of this new MCU. In fact, Kevin Feige has already come out and stated that they have an entire saga planned out for the X-Men going forward. And this makes complete sense considering how big the X-Men are for Marvel as a company. However, because of this massive popularity, the X-Men have been adapted multiple times in the past, whether it was the movies with the Fox universe or multiple cartoons. So that obviously begs the question on how the MCU plans to adapt the X-Men and make it different from what we've seen in the past, but still remain true to the source material. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my ideal MCU X-Men saga. But before we get into the video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share if you enjoy the content, and also hit that hype button if you have the feature available. Diving right into the topic, as I already stated, adapting the X-Men in the MCU is going to be quite the task. And that's again because of the fact that the X-Men have been adapted multiple times, and a lot of their popular stories have also been adapted by extension. We've already seen the likes of Dark Phoenix twice in live action in X-Men The Last Stand and also X-Men Dark Phoenix. And because of this, fans are pretty much over that entire story arc with Jean Grey, even though it's very pivotal to the X-Men mythos. We've also seen the likes of Days of Future Past, which is another very popular X-Men story, and that movie was really good, so I don't even see them trying to re-adapt that. And the list can obviously go on. That being said, I think the saving grace of this entire situation is very similar to the MCU. Fox also only had rights to certain characters, so they couldn't tell all of these stories in the true comic accurate fashion that most fans would have wanted to see them in. So even though a lot of these stories have been adapted, there's still some wiggle room to try and tell them in new ways or ways that are more similar to the source material and make them feel fresh to the audience. And this brings me to the very first project in this saga, and that is a Wolverine Origins prequel show. Now obviously we've already had X-Men Origins Wolverine, but again, like I just established, now that we're dealing with an MCU that has rights to pretty much all of their characters, they can tell Wolverine's origin a lot more comic accurately, and they can add a lot more elements that would make this origin story feel very fresh and new to audiences. So first things first, I would have this show play out sort of like an anthology series. I'd have every couple of episodes take place at a certain point in Logan's history. So obviously because of the fact that Logan was born in the 1800s, that is where we will start. By extension of this, we would see things like the emergence of Wolverine's mutant powers and his dynamic with Sabretooth. Because of the fact that we're now in the rebooted MCU, we could see him in World War II with the likes of Captain America, Bucky, Namor the Submariner, and other Marvel characters that were alive in that era. And obviously this wouldn't be like Chris Evans Captain America or Sebastian Stan Bucky, it would be the new actors that get cast in this new reboot that would cameo in this show as those characters. Moving on from that, shortly after World War II in the 1950s, we would see Logan's time in Japan where he goes to train with Saburo. Not only would we be able to see the martial arts expertise that Logan picks up during this time period, but we would also get to see his romance with a woman named Itsu. Obviously because of the fact that Logan is a mutant and mutants are heavily frowned upon at this point in time in the world, he will have to keep his mutant powers a secret from the people who live in this village. That being said, in this time period, he and Itsu would get married and have a kid who we would later know as Daken. However, during the time period in which Itsu was actually pregnant with Daken, Wolverine would be found out to be a mutant. And because of this, he would be exiled from the village, leaving Itsu and her unborn son to stay. After being exiled, Logan would attempt to secretly return home, and this would be where he finds Itsu brutally murdered with his unborn son taken out of her womb. And this murder will have been something that was secretly carried out by the Winter Soldier, which would obviously be another cameo for Bucky in this show, but this moment would just showcase the horrifying things that he did as the Winter Soldier. Obviously, after the events that transpire, Logan wants to avenge their deaths, which puts him in a vulnerable position to be kidnapped and brainwashed by Weapon X. The final episodes of the series would showcase him briefly working alongside a brainwashed Sabretooth, Silver Fox, and Maverick. It would also showcase his iconic adamantium procedure that would then lead to him massacring everyone there and then escaping Weapon X. The series would then end with Logan effectively nomading from there on out, at least until we get to the more current day. And this brings us to the very first X-Men movie in the MCU that will be set in the current day. And I would effectively want this movie to loosely adapt the Grant Morrison run. Now, very quickly before we get into what this project is going to consist of, I just want to establish that I'm not going to be covering other X-Men related factions like X-Force, X-Factor, or the New Mutants simply because of the fact that it would make this video entirely too convoluted. That being said, because of the fact that this first movie is going to loosely adapt the main plot point of the Grant Morrison run, we would see things like the death of 16 million mutants on Genosha, which would have been manipulated by Cassandra Nova, the twin of Charles Xavier. During the film, we'll actually find out that Emma Frost was actually on Genosha during this event, and her experience is what leads her to wanting to join the X-Men. This would also introduce the concept of secondary mutations like Beast becoming more animalistic and also Emma Frost gaining her diamond form. As far as the current X-Men roster in this movie, we'll see the likes of Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine, Storm, Beast, Kitty Pryde, Emma Frost now, Colossus, Gambit, Rogue, Angel, and also Nightcrawler. Obviously, there's a lot of X-Men members, so I just couldn't fit everyone onto the team, but this is pretty much the roster that I would like to see in this movie. And any other major X-Men characters could be with X-Force or the X-Factor teams. Moving on, another direct result of the Genosha massacre would be more mutants looking to join Charles Xavier's Institute. Humanity's backlash and overall fear of mutants would also intensify after the events of Genosha as well. Because of all of this happening, Cassandra Nova would follow up with another attack, but this time it would be directly against Charles Xavier's school. This would lead to a final battle between her and the X-Men, with the X-Men actually defeating her, but not without casualties. Because of his grief and guilt, Professor X will step down as headmaster of the school, leaving Cyclops and Storm in charge. The next project in this saga is another Wolverine prequel story, except this time it's going to be a live-action movie. And this movie is none other than Hulk versus Wolverine. Not only is this a fan favorite fight and something that fans have been asking to see in live action for literal years, but it also ties in perfectly to where I ended off my prequel series for Wolverine. That being said, in the beginning of this movie, we'll pick up more in the current day, so think around the 2010s, with Wolverine having nomaded for all of these years. This is when the Canadian military team Alpha Flight will find him, nurse him back to health, and offer him a place on their team. And since Logan has nowhere to go and he's effectively been moving from place to place for all of these years, he agrees. And lucky for Logan, his very first mission with the team is to take down the Hulk, who has been rampaging in northern Canada. This will obviously lead to Logan and Hulk inevitably fighting, but he realizes that Hulk actually isn't a threat to anyone and helps Hulk to escape from S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Canadian military. However, little does Logan know both he and Hulk are being targeted by Weapon X. And since Logan left the team back in the day, Weapon X will now have recruited the likes of Omega Red, Deadpool, and Lady Deathstrike. Now, yes, I'm aware that in the source material, Omega Red is actually affiliated with Russia. However, I really want him to work with Weapon X in this movie, so I would just make it so that he was a prisoner of war from Russia, and the only way that he could get his freedom is to work with Weapon X. That being said, at the end of this movie, after Logan essentially betrays Team Alpha Flight and ends up with nowhere to go once again, this will be when Charles Xavier actually approaches Logan and recruits him to join the X-Men, showcasing the full history of Wolverine prior to joining the X-Men and prior to him showing up in X-Men 1. The next live-action project in this saga is going to be the second X-Men movie, and that movie is going to be titled Astonishing X-Men. And I would want this movie to adapt the main plots of the Astonishing X-Men run by Joss Whedon. As far as the roster of the team, it will remain pretty much the same as the roster of the team in the first film. Obviously, if you wanted to add some newer members to the team like Jubilee, Morph, etc., you can do that. I personally just think that there's way too many X-Men for me to think of who exactly I would want to add to this team, because the team that I already have is like the perfect X-Men roster in my opinion. That being said, the main conflict of this movie will be that there is an actual cure for mutants that is discovered, which shakes the X-Men to their core. As the X-Men are attempting to stop the mass distribution of this cure, they actually find out that Colossus's DNA is the main component of the cure. However, as they discover this, aliens from the Shi'ar Empire arrive to capture Colossus and take him to their planet. The reason why they do this is because they believe in a prophecy that a mutant from Earth shall be their doom. This leads to the X-Men going cosmic and actually traveling to the Empire in order to save Colossus. As for the two main physical conflicts in this film, one conflict is going to be having to stop a giant bullet sent by the Shi'ar to destroy Earth. This is when we'll see the iconic moment of Kitty Pryde using her phasing powers to phase the Earth-sized bullet through the planet, which actually works but sends her spiraling through space. The second physical conflict is actually going to be the remaining X-Men fighting the likes of Gladiator and Vulcan, who is Scott's long-lost brother. After defeating the Shi'ar, the X-Men will return to Earth, and they are actually celebrated by the people, with Cyclops becoming the face of the mutants. As far as the post-credit scene is concerned, I would actually like it to reveal that Magneto stopped the bullet that Kitty Pryde actually phased through the planet and saved her life. In this same post-credit scene, after saving Kitty Pryde, Magneto will bring her back to the X-Men and utilize her as a bargaining chip to beg the X-Men and the Avengers for their help. This brings us to the third film in the X-Men saga, and this film is X-Men House of M. And this movie would literally just adapt the X-Men House of M storyline. For those of you who don't know, the reason why Magneto goes to the X-Men and the Avengers for their help is because Wanda has become emotionally unstable and has been causing many of the events that have been going on right now in the MCU. The X-Men and the Avengers will then have to decide whether they want to kill Wanda or not, and in the middle of that debate, there's a flash of white light, and from this point on, we're in a completely new world. Now that we're in this new world, we follow Wolverine as our POV character, who finds out that he's in a world where mutants are the dominant species. In this new reality, Logan is the only one who remembers how the world was and finds a young mutant girl who has the ability to wake people up to reality. Using her ability, Logan gets a squad of heroes together and they raid Magneto's castle. Because of Logan assembling this hero team, we can get cameos from characters like Captain America, Spider-Man, Sentry, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, etc. The conflict will then end with Wanda returning the world as it normally was, but removing the mutant abilities from a majority of the mutant population, leaving only 200 mutants in the world with powers. As for the end credit scene of this movie, I would want it to be Logan as a side effect of that mutant girl's powers, regaining all of his memories that he lost up until this point in time. And because of this, he will want to continue searching for his son, Daken. The fourth movie in this X-Men saga is going to be X-Men: The Messiah Complex. Obviously, as you can tell from the title, it's pulling heavy inspiration from the Messiah Complex run, and the movie will start off by showcasing the remaining X-Men establishing Utopia, which is an island where the X-Men can work out of and use as a safe haven for mutants. Following the events of House of M, Cerebro will actually find the birth of the first new mutant, and we'll follow several groups trying to retrieve the infant. This will introduce us to the Purifiers, which are a human hate group who want to kill all mutants. The main antagonist of this project will be none other than Mr. Sinister, whose motivations are to get this infant and experiment on her, as well as the X-Men who are trying to protect this infant. The end of this movie will showcase the X-Men entrusting the time-traveling mutant Cable to take the child across time and raise her to keep her safe from everyone after her in the present. He's also tasked with bringing this infant back when she's old enough to defend herself. As far as how Cable gets introduced in this X-Men saga, I would do it personally in a prequel X-Men animated series that goes over all of the major X-Men events that we haven't seen in this saga, so things like Days of Future Past, Dark Phoenix, the whole debacle with Scott and Jean's clone. All of these arcs are things that I would do in an animated prequel simply because of the fact that we've seen all of this already, not only in the movies but also in animation. So I doubt the MCU is going to waste time retelling these stories, especially with X-Men 97 pretty much telling these stories right now. That being said, the final project in this saga is pretty much the Infinity War-esque event for this saga, and that is none other than Avengers versus X-Men. And I wholeheartedly believe that this is going to be the next major MCU event post Secret Wars. This movie will obviously adapt the source material pretty closely, with Cable returning to the present with an 18-year-old Hope Summers, who we find out was actually the infant that he had the entire time. During said time, Cable actually trained Hope Summers, and it was revealed that her mutant ability is to be able to copy and amplify the mutant powers of people around her. This catches the attention of the Phoenix Force, which is now heading to Earth. And after its relationship with Jean Grey, it sees Hope Summers as its new host. The conflict with the Avengers and the X-Men arises when the Avengers are fearful that this girl alongside the Phoenix will destroy the Earth, and the mutants, aka the X-Men, believe that she'll actually restart mutant kind and help restore what was lost in the House of M event. That would effectively be the main focus of this movie, and because of that, obviously we'd get a lot of iconic matchups. But overall, that is how I would do an X-Men saga in the MCU post reboot. Obviously, I know that there's a lot of things that I probably left out that a lot of people are fans of and want to see, but again, with how much X-Men content we already have, I kind of had to narrow it down to things that I think that they would actually do. Obviously, it's possible that they go in a completely different direction from the things that I mentioned in this video, but for the most part, I don't think that we're going to get retellings of the same X-Men stories that we've already seen. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Also hit that hype button, and again, it's been your boy K the God. I'll see you guys in the next one.